Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we need to dive back in time about 2.5 years to September 21st, 2018. Jonas sent me some photos of the craziest guitar that I forgot I've ever seen. He had just asked me a different question today, and even though I don't answer questions on Reverb anymore, I offer private help sessions on my website if you are interested in services like that. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this guitar and answer his question today on the air. Okay, so here's what we got. We got El Guitar Gibson, Les Paul Standard, and all this stuff that I can't pronounce, but this was sold on what's like essentially like the eBay of Denmark or something like that. Apparently it's a good place to sell some stuff. So let's check this thing out. Starting with this photo, I can already tell you what it is. You can tell just by looking at these knobs what era this guitar came from. It's the early 80s, so we're talking anywhere between like 81 to 84-ish. So even though we do not have a serial number photo available for this guitar, we can already tell it's legit. These are my favorite all-time knobs that were ever made. But for me, the early to mid 80s is my favorite time period in Gibson history. But the next thing you'll notice here is the quite unusual finish. This is what is known as candy apple red, and the early 80s was the first time that Gibson started experimenting with this finish. The very earliest examples actually became all orange peeled. Honestly, Gibson has never been able to get metallic finishes right. They always finish check or something goes bad. But at the beginning, I mean, you can take a look at this old one that I used to own. The finish would just start to bubble up. It's not necessarily an orange peel, but that's kind of what it looks like, but sometimes the finish will start flaking off. That's kind of a similar story for the original Gold Burst Les Paul Customs. The earliest ones were done over gold, the later ones were done over silver. Personally, I think the gold ones look better because they normally have a darker hue, but based on what I'm seeing here, I would guess this one was done over silver. But other than that, this is just kind of a basic Les Paul standard from the early 80s. You likely have dual Tim Shaw PAF humbuckers. It's not a prehistoric or anything. So that's just a regular Nashville-style bridge and a regular tailpiece, but you'll see it's got gold hardware. That's something that's a little bit special for these candy apple reds. These things were based off of the Heritage series. I think what they mainly took away from that is the top carve on these guys. They're a little bit different as compared to everything else. These things actually had a limited edition number stamped at the back of the headstock, just like those guys did. And hey, I'm just now seeing this for the first time. This guy still has the original diamond posi lock buttons on here. That's pretty cool. You've got the regular trapezoid inlays. We don't have any good close-ups of the headstock, so pardon the super blurry image of me, really zooming in here to kind of show you some stuff, but the truss rod cover, it's as standard. You get the gold tuners. A lot of times these things will have the flip-out winding versions, and I can't quite tell that right now just by looking at this, though. Okay, so you're probably saying, hey, Trogly, why are you sharing this guitar? I mean, we get it. It's kind of a limited edition. They're not super rare guitars by any means. Currently, in late 2020, we've got 3 of them on the market, and some people ask the moon for these things, but really, they don't sell for much of a premium. We're talking anywhere between 24 to about 32. Well, let's take a look at this one anyways, just so we can verify that we are talking about the same guitar here. Now this one is definitely over silver because that's a really bright finish. But there's a slightly better look at those knobs. The gold hardware is in much better shape on this one. There we can see our flip out winding tuners, the Les Paul model silkscreen, all that good stuff. Here's that limited edition stamped serial number I was talking about. I think so far we've seen numbers all the way up to about 400. It's been a while since I've dove into the lore of these guys, but they're not as limited as you would believe. But this guy was done in 82. It wouldn't surprise me if the other one's 82 as well. And this one has a lighter colored fretboard. Somebody's swapped out our strap buttons for inferior ones. And it's got a whole bunch of neckwear. But here you can see the silver base coat. And this one for $3,100, that's a fair price. If you want one of these things, this thing doesn't seem too bad. I'm betting that neck pickup has been replaced and you're missing the pick guard though. But it does have the 3-point adjustment bridge, which has 9 individual positions. You've got the diamond posi lock strap buttons. No flip out winding tuners on this guy. Somebody might have replaced those. It's the perfect crime. No one will ever know if it had it or not. But that guy's also an 82. Why are you featuring this guitar? I mean, we get it. It's a kind of a special guitar. It was a limited edition, but you've already reviewed one of these things. Why does it get its own separate upload? My friends, it gets a separate upload because of this photo. What has happened to this poor guitar? Oh boy. So we still get the candy apple red finish back here, but somebody has routed the gigantic areas out of the back of this guitar. I mean, this is factory stock. This is factory stock. This is not. This is not. This kind of looks like the style of route that they would use on like a Les Paul or a 50th anniversary Les Paul. And unfortunately, we do not have any photos of what the inside of this looked like. So all we can do is guess. A, they put some sort of like pedal board system in here, and maybe there's like an additional route on the edge. Kind of like those Rollin' Ready Studio Customs or something like that. I mean, you could fit a whole bunch of stuff in that little route. I mean, in this, maybe they did that as an easier way to look at the backside of the pickups. Who knows? Well, actually, I do know what this is. This was not done to put fancy stuff in this guitar. It was done to weight relieve it. Oh, man. You gotta consider the circumstances here. I mean, my first thing is, why didn't you just buy a different guitar that was lighter? Maybe this particular instrument had some sort of sentimental value to them, like their mom bought it for them, so they didn't want to sell it, but they needed a lighter weight guitar for on stage, so they just did this. I mean, it appears to have been fairly well done. I mean, they had to have custom machined these plastics. And why didn't they just buy a lighter guitar? Well, they probably did this when it was a fairly new guitar, I would assume. And being an 81/late 82, weight relieving didn't happen for another year yet. And even when they started doing regular weight relief of the 9-hole variety, the guitars were still heavy. So I'd be real curious to see how much weight they were able to get out of this. I couldn't imagine it'd be more than a pound. I mean, some of these standards can be like 12 pounds. So maybe this is one of those bad boat anchors and they just wanted to get it down to something, a little bit more manageable. But hey, from the front, it looks great. Really, really dark rosewood fretboard on that guy. But yes, this guitar has suffered an unfortunate fate. And I'm really curious, how much is 15,000, I think they call them krona? So a couple of years ago, they still wanted 1,800 USD for that. That's a tough call, whether it's worth it or not. I mean, if you are 100% a player and you don't mind that they've routed it out, I mean, at least they have professional covers on the back, right? I could see that being like the top value for this thing. If it wasn't for the rest of the wear, I'd probably say it's like maybe a $3,000-ish example, plus or minus 300. And it looks like the conversion back then was for even more. So maybe not the best deal as far as the American market is concerned, but you also have to remember the overseas market is a little bit more strong simply because there's less guitars over there. And to import one into those countries costs additional taxes and fees by that country. So for our playing demo today, let's go ahead and check out my old Candy Apple Red Standard. We're not done yet today. So Jonas here was asking me about this 1986 Epiphone Les Paul. He saw it and he says it's a salmon color with nice flames. I've got to agree with him. That is some sort of a strange salmon color. The back of the headstock looks a little bit rough. Got a little bit of finish checking stemming from that. It looks like you can see some wood grain through that finish. So a transparent salmon? That's kind of cool. I like that you can actually see some sort of a flame veneer underneath that. It's a metric style bridge, as I would assume you would have. I'm not sure if he has the year right on this, because I thought the late 80s Epiphones actually had like the Gibson headstock, but that might be something different. Let's see what we can find. Yeah, see, this was the headstock I was thinking about. It's kind of a interesting color for an 80s guitar. So let's see what we can find here that's ever been listed on Reverb. It looks like we get a late 90s, but that's a bright pink. It's not, transparent. That is interesting. I've never heard of this before. We're going to take a slight detour. JJ French Signature Model 2000's Pink Burst. Oh, man. That's kind of a cool... Oh... purple case and an elitist. That means this is like as good as a Les Paul Studio, maybe even better. If you're not familiar, that's the founding member of Twisted Sister. Now it all makes sense, doesn't it? It's quirky. I love it. And it's got the TS for Twisted Sister right there. I think I would like to review one of these. If I'm going to review an elitist, you might as well get the hot pink one. Because now let's look for salmon. I'm not seeing that. My next best guess is to search that and then look at ATs only. See if you can find something similar like that. Oh, sweet. Those things are freaky. I think Agufish did a video on one of these things. Yeah, I think we actually partnered up on that episode where I taught about the Steinberger and stuff. So you can check out his video if you want to see that. It's a crazy guitar, but I hate the KBX trem, so I'm not even interested in it. So this one looks like I'm sending out a helpline for this guy. I'm guessing it just might be a refinish, or it might not actually be what we thought it is. I mean, this is looking a little bit similar. I guess our next thing is we need to decode our serial number. We've got an S60715574. Now, by no means is the Guitar Data project perfect, but it can help you get somewhere. So like this one, it tells us 3 different things. It could be an 86, it could be a 96, it could be a 2006. I'm honestly not keen enough to know the difference between like the years. If you take this to somebody who specializes in Epiphones like I do in Gibsons, they'll be able to tell you, oh, it couldn't be a 96 because it has Kluson tuners that are labeled deluxe instead of just Epiphone or something like that. Obviously, that example is just kind of pulled off the top of my head. But you know, a 90s model would make a little bit more sense to me, because we can see quite a few other pink ones. And here's kind of a limited edition see-through purple. Let's say you're not an expert. What you can do is like come to Reverb and just see what a 96 Epiphone would look like. So this one's got a really freaky horn on it. Somebody took the finish off the back of the neck. And you can kind of look at some of your features. This logo is all crooked. Gibson's worn off the truss rod cover. It doesn't quite look the same, but it could just be a completely different model. And our serial number looks a lot different on this one, so not necessarily a good comparison piece there. Maybe this will have some more answers for us. A nice little purple burst. Yeah, see, these logos all look pretty well normal. And this was made in another different factory. But yet this 96 looks like it has a pretty level logo as well. In my opinion, I really truly believe this thing's been refinished, because even that serial number looks a little bit wonky in comparison to everything else we've looked at. But again, remember, I'm not a 100% expert on these things, but here's a different 86. I believe this is what the 96 looks like. That font does not look right. Not even the color is looking right. So that might be something that somebody else has stamped on there, and they just kind of gave it this unique finish. To further identify this thing, I would need some pickup cavity shots, even some control cavity shots, and maybe that would explain why the Epiphone logo is a little bit wonky or something. But feel free to chime in what you guys think this is, and hopefully we can thank him for finding us this weird-looking Les Paul. Alright, thank you Troglodytes for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.